The trouble is, this man has admitted to finding children sexually attractive, has admitted to not caring when he abuses children, and has had no rehabilitation therapy at all. So for me, it's the concern that he is not safe to be out of prison. He admits this thing, but nothing has been done to kind of reprogram the way that he thinks about children. I was abused by my father for 9 years, and I never actually spoke about it myself to the police. They attended my home address in 2015 with a search warrant. They were following a website that he was sharing indecent images of me with other paedophiles. And so they came to the address with a search warrant to try and find, these images. From doing that, they then uncovered the 9 years of abuse that I suffered.
Goodness me. Ceri, your father then went to prison and served 17 years of a 15-year sentence. So at what point were you informed? He's now out of prison. Your father's now out of prison. At what point were you informed about the gender transition?
So the whole parole process began in 2021. I kind of pinned that down to COVID because it wasn't supposed to be then at all. From then, in November 2021, there was an altercation that happened with him in prison, so it stopped the parole process, and I was told he wasn't eligible anymore. Then in early 2022, I was told that he had now decided to transition to female, and also had given permission for me to know, which to me felt like it was his way of reminding me that he's still there and very much has control of the situation.
And your concern is what now? Because there will, of course, people who will be horrified by what he did to you and what you went through. He's been, your father has been to jail, served that time, and is now out. There will be people who will say, well, shouldn't your father be able to just live their life now?
So I'm a reasonable person, I think. Considering this man took away my childhood, I would like to say I'm quite reasonable. I deal with it by trying to justify it in my own mind. And if he had completed any kind of rehabilitation, shown any kind of remorse, as much as it would anger me that he'd been given this new life, I would agree, and I would say, it is what it is. I'm going to move on with my life, and I'm not going to let it consume me. The trouble is, this man has admitted to finding children sexually attractive, has admitted to not caring when he abuses children, and has had no rehabilitation therapy at all. So for me, it's the concern that he is not safe to be out of prison. He admits this thing, but nothing has been done to kind of reprogram the way that he thinks about children.
I'll come back to that in a second. I just wanted to clarify. Do you believe that what role do you think the transition played in the decision to give your father parole, if any?
So I've been told by many professionals who wouldn't put their name onto paper because they're afraid of being, losing their jobs, being cancelled, all these things that I'm facing, really. And they have admitted that people do this. Prisoners, paedophiles do this because they get segregation rights within prison. Therefore, they cost the prison so much money. And so early parole is more than likely going to be granted.
I see. Your concern now is about DBS checks, presumably because your father has a different name now. Is it to do with? Are you worried about the name not matching, or are you worried with the gender not matching? And I mean, how could your father kind of slip through those checks? How could he avoid those checks?
So by saying that he is transgender and female, he can obviously then apply for a new birth certificate with his new name, new gender. Therefore, he can get a passport with that name and gender, a driving license with that name and gender, and they're all documents that you need to get a DBS check. The DBS sensitive loophole that relies on people saying about their previous identity if they have these documents. It doesn't rely on it automatically flagging. So he could send in this new birth certificate, driving license and passport in his new name with his new gender, and therefore Clive Bundy, who is male and abused his daughter, no longer exists.
So the DBS system, to your knowledge, won't detect that someone used to be known by a different name.
No, there's a lot of loopholes, but even with name change itself, if you look at statistics, we've lost thousands of paedophiles who have changed their names. And it's quite concerning because paedophiles are supposed to be one of the most tracked criminals. So how do you lose them? And I think that when professionals are telling me that this is often the case and what happens, it's so concerning that they know it, but nobody's admitting it.
And I presume you want that system to be changed.
Absolutely. I feel like it should be automatic. It should, if I changed my name by deed poll, therefore if I applied for something, I feel like my national insurance number should flag up my previous identities. Therefore, you're not necessarily denying the rights of transgender people who are genuine, but you are keeping track of those who have changed their name and therefore can't use the loophole, so won't abuse it.
Well, Ceri-Lee, I don't know what to say. I mean, the story that that what happened to you that you told us at the beginning is still very much on my mind, and I'm sure it will be with many, many people who are listening to this. You are incredibly brave for speaking to us about, what happened to you and your continuing concerns about what is happening with your father. Thank you for talking to us.